We are approaching the holidays, and with that, most of us are craving delicious desserts. But when we eat healthy throughout the year, suddenly most desserts become way too sweet and not enjoyable. So today I'm going to share 3 deliciously healthy tart recipes with you that are low in sugar and made with mostly wholesome ingredients. An incredibly creamy chocolate raspberry tart sweetened with nothing but a bar of dark chocolate. A decadent chocolate orange tart that has an out of this world dairy-free dulce de leche. And lastly, a simple apple tart with oatmeal crust that everybody will end up raving about. So let's get started. For the chocolate raspberry tart, you will need to pull out your food processor. Add 2 cups of whole raw almonds to it. Put on the lid and then process and process and process until you reach a coarse flour consistency. At this point, you add 3 tablespoons of flax meal to the almonds. And then while the processor is going, add 1/3 cup of liquid coconut oil to it. Continue processing until the coarse almond flour starts to somewhat stick together into a dough. Then dump that crumbly dough into a parchment paper lined tart pan and use your hands to press it all into the bottom and the sides. Take your time to really press it in hard and all the way up the sides. Be thorough and patient. Now bake the crust for 15 minutes in a 350 degrees Fahrenheit preheated oven and then let it cool down completely. In the meantime, make the chocolate filling. For that you will need a high quality, at least 70% dark chocolate bar. Add it to a bowl and then melt it either in the microwave or over a water bath until it's completely melted but not hot. Then measure out 1.5 cups of coconut cream. That's the creamy part of the canned coconut milk when you left it in the fridge overnight. The part that separates from the coconut water. You might need up to 3 cans to get that amount. Keep the water for smoothies or overnight oats. Now add the coconut cream to your melted chocolate and mix with a spatula first and then with a whisk until completely smooth and creamy, and then pour it into your almond crust. Swirl it around a bit to evenly distribute and then place it back in the freezer for only 10 or 15 minutes. Once the tart filling isn't wiggling around anymore, it's time to put the raspberries on top. Make sure your raspberries are super dry or else you'll get tons of water into the tart filling. Once your raspberries are evenly distributed, you can store the tart in the fridge until it's time to serve or cut right into it. Look how creamy the chocolate filling is, it's the best! Now let's make the chocolate orange tart, which is just as delicious. We will start by preparing the dairy-free dulce de leche, and for that you will need 1 cup of coconut cream. Remember, just the cream, not the water from the canned coconut milk, and 1/2 cup of coconut sugar. Mix and just bring that to a boil in a saucepan, and once boiling, reduce the heat to low and let it simmer for about half an hour, stirring every 5 or 10 minutes. In the meantime, let's prepare the crust. For that you will need 2 tablespoons of flaxseed meal. I'm using meal made of golden flax seeds here. 2 tablespoons liquid coconut oil and 3 tablespoons of super hot water. Then mix and mix until it becomes all slobbery like an egg white. Once you reached that consistency, you can add 2.5 cups of fine almond flour and mix until it's easy to form a dough with it with your hands. At this point, you can dump that crumbly dough into a parchment paper lined tart pan and use your hands to press it all into the bottom and the sides. Take your time and really press it in hard all the way up the sides. Be thorough and patient. Now bake the crust in a 350 degrees Fahrenheit hot oven and then let it cool down completely. In the meantime, melt a high quality 70% dark chocolate bar in the microwave or over a water bath, and then pour the melted chocolate into the cool almond crust and quickly swirl it around until you covered the bottom and sides. Make sure it comes up all the way to the top of the sides. Then stick the chocolate covered crust into the freezer for just 5 minutes until the chocolate hardened. Then add the cooled dulce de leche on top. Swirl around and stick it back into the freezer. In the meantime, peel 3 oranges, making sure you also remove as much of the white skin as possible, as that's what makes oranges bitter. Then thinly slice them with a super sharp knife to keep the slices juicy. Now place the orange slices on top of the dulce de leche in a nice pattern, and then either store it in the fridge until it's time for dessert or cut right into it. I mean, look at that caramel-like filling and those beautiful oranges. This is such a special tart. Okay, so now the third and last tart. This is the simplest, I feel, and yet it's so incredibly delicious. I make it all the time. For this apple tart crust, you will need a food processor again, and you will have to add 2¼ cups of old-fashioned rolled oats to it. Then process and process until you reach somewhat of a coarse oat flour. Then add a pinch of sea salt, ½ cup of cubed super cold butter. Yes, hard coconut oil works, but not as nicely. And then put on the lid and process until it starts to resemble a crumbly dough. And at this point, you will add 2 tablespoons ice water, 1 tablespoon maple syrup, and 1 egg yolk to the oat crumble, all while you keep processing. This will make a very sticky dough that is hard to press into the tart pan by hand because it sticks to your fingers. So I recommend using 2 large pieces of parchment paper and dumping the dough onto one, then covering it with the other, and then use a rolling pin to roll the dough into a large circle in between the 2 pieces of parchment paper until it's about 1/6 of an inch thick. Then remove the top part and flip the dough quickly onto the parchment paper lined tart pan like this, and then press it into the sides with the top paper still on so it doesn't stick to your fingers. Now stick it into the freezer before you attempt to cut off the excess from the edges. In the meantime, you can prep your apples. You will need 3 to 4 apples, and while you can leave them unpeeled, I sometimes like to peel them. Then cut them in half and use a melon baller to remove the core and a knife to remove the stem. Then turn them cut side down and slice them thinly. By now, your crust should be nice and hard, so it's easy to remove the excess edges. They break right off. Remove the edges all around and then the top parchment paper, and then start placing the sliced apples in a nice pattern on top of the crust. Then get 3/4 cup of maple flakes. Maple sugar won't work, but brown sugar or coconut sugar works too. Sprinkle the maple flakes evenly on top of the apples, and then place the tart in the 400 degrees Fahrenheit preheated oven for 30 minutes. After the baking time, let the apple tart cool down completely before attempting to take it out of the tart pan, or else the crust may break. Once it's completely cooled down, remove it from the tart pan and then keep it in the fridge until it's time for a dessert, or cut right into it. This one is so simple yet so incredibly delicious. You will love it. I can't wait to hear which one of the 3 is your favorite. I hope you give all 3 of them a try. Let me know which one you enjoyed the most. And wait, before you leave, please subscribe to my channel so you don't miss more recipes like this one in the future. And if you've enjoyed the video, I'm sure you're gonna love this one.